Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today we're setting our sights on a sector that's, well, really buzzing: uranium.
Absolutely buzzing.
We've gathered insights from quite a range of sources, extensive research, government contracts, partnerships, even U.S. policy rumors, to bring you our analysis of the top uranium companies to watch.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack what makes these companies tick.
Especially their connections to the U.S. government, right? And why that really matters for energy's future.
It's key.
Before we jump in, just a quick reminder, please subscribe, like, leave a comment. It genuinely helps us produce more analyses like this one.
It really does.
And hey, if there's a specific company you want us to look into next time, just drop it in the comments below.
We'd love to hear it.
And if you find value in what we do, maybe consider buying us a coffee. Your support keeps our research going.
Much appreciated.
Okay, so let's get into understanding this critical market.
Well, what's really fascinating here, I think, is the rare bipartisan political support that nuclear energy is getting.
That is unusual these days.
It is. This isn't some niche market anymore. It's increasingly seen as critical for U.S. energy security, clean energy goals, and even, surprisingly, for the infrastructure needed for AI development.
AI infrastructure.
Yeah. So for you, the listener, this means a sector with some pretty significant tailwinds behind it. Broad-based support.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. It feels like a perfect storm of factors converging right now.
It really does.
Thinking about the immediate catalysts, say 2025 to 2026, we've got things like the Trump energy policy, those executive orders promoting nuclear and domestic production.
Yeah, pushing that domestic angle hard.
But how significant is that Russian import ban in, really driving the immediate need for domestic supply?
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Arguably the biggest short-term driver right now.
Really?
Yeah, the ban creates this urgent, almost existential need for domestic alternatives. Russia was such a big player, so it's a geopolitical shock forcing the U.S. to prioritize self-sufficiency. Plus, we're expecting more government buys for the strategic reserve.
More purchases.
Yep. And that massive push for advanced reactor fuel, the HALU program, over $2.7 billion in contracts being allocated there.
$2.7 billion. That's serious money for high-assay, low-enriched uranium.
It is. And it's not just about power plants. It touches national defense, too.
That makes total sense. So, okay, beyond this immediate scramble, what about the medium term, like 2026 to 2030?
Right.
The U.S. is aiming to quadruple nuclear capacity by 2050. That's a massive target.
It's incredibly ambitious.
How does that translate into specific demands? Technologies?
Well, exactly. That's why we're seeing all these demonstration projects for advanced reactors popping up.
Okay.
And they specifically need that HLU fuel we just mentioned.
Right, the next-gen fuel.
But here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The data center explosion.
Yeah.
The growing need for nuclear power just to support AI infrastructure, it's becoming a major new driver. Kind of unexpected, really.
AI is just so power-hungry.
Insanely hungry. And nuclear is one of the few sources that can deliver that kind of reliable baseload power at scale.
That connection is fascinating, AI and nuclear. And I guess those fast-track approval processes we're hearing about are crucial for meeting that demand.
Absolutely critical. Expedited permitting helps streamline development, gets these projects moving faster. That's always been a bottleneck for nuclear, historically.
And looking further out, long-term, beyond 2030, projections are showing a uranium shortage.
Yeah, a potential significant supply-demand imbalance.
Which you'd imagine drives even more government action, right?
Definitely. More intervention to secure supply, probably enhanced cooperation with allies like Canada, Australia.
Makes sense.
The U.S. is really trying to position itself for dominance in advanced nuclear tech. It feels like a pivotal moment.
It really does. So with all these powerful forces at play, who were the companies actually building this future?
Right.
Our analysis looked at their government connection score, 1 to 10. How exactly did we quantify that to make it more than just a number?
Good question. It's not arbitrary at all. It's a weighted analysis. We looked at tangible things, dollar value, strategic importance of current government contracts, existing partnerships.
Right, the concrete stuff.
Right. But also forward-looking things. Does a company have unique tech, a key domestic resource base, things that position them for future engagement with U.S. energy security plans?
So it's about who Washington might see as indispensable partners.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what does this mean for you listening? It's about spotting the companies that are really central to cutting that Russian dependency, boosting U.S. energy security, and critically, supplying that advanced reactor fuel.
Exactly. Higher score means more intertwined with national priorities, stronger support, more potential tied directly to what the government's trying to achieve.
Okay, let's get into it then. Where does it get really interesting? The companies with the strongest government ties. Scores 8 to 10.
Yeah, the top tier.
First up, a perfect 10 out of 10. Centrus Energy. What makes Centrus so vital right now?
Well, what's truly indispensable is their role as the only company currently producing HALEU.
The only one.
The only one producing it for the Department of Energy right now. HAU is that next-gen fuel. Centrus basically holds the keys with their American centrifuge plant.
Wow.
That big $110 million DOE contract extension through June 2026. It's not just funding, it cements their role, makes them a strategic national asset.
And they've delivered already.
Yep, completed phase 2 delivery, 900 kilograms of HALEU, shows they can do it. And there's potential for even longer contracts, expansion.
A clear leader then. Okay, next. Energy Fuels comes in strong at 9 out of 10. A different piece of the puzzle, but critical too.
Absolutely. Energy Fuels is all about the physical supply chain on the ground. They own the White Mesa mill.
That's the only operating conventional mill in the U.S.
The only one. So it's not just mining, it's the processing. Hugely important.
And they supply the strategic reserve.
Yep, big supplier. $18.5 million contract there. They control the whole chain, mine to mill, gives them huge control, makes them vital for rebuilding domestic supply.
And they're active now.
Very active. Record production at Pinyon Plain just resumed sales at $77 a pound. Plus, they're expanding into rare earths, which is another critical minerals angle.
Interesting diversification. Okay. Also scoring a 9, Orano USA Federal Services. Deep government ties here, too.
Deep ties. Orano is a powerhouse. They have tech solutions across the entire fuel cycle.
The whole thing.
Yeah. They got selected for multiple DOE contracts, both regular LEU and the advanced ETA LEU enrichment. One LEU contract worth up to $3.4 billion.
$3.4 billion.
Huge. And their Project Ike. That's a multi-billion-dollar enrichment facility they're developing in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. A massive effort to boost domestic enrichment.
Reducing that foreign dependence again.
Exactly.
Okay, rounding out this top group with an 8 out of 10 is Cameco. Now, they're Canadian. How do they fit the U.S. government connection picture?
Right, not purely domestic, but still critical. Cameco is a major uranium supplier to U.S. utilities. Absolutely vital for reducing reliance on Russia.
Okay.
And crucially, they own 49% of Westinghouse Electric Company.
Oh, the reactor giant.
Exactly. That stake deepens their strategic importance to the U.S., and their recent results show they can deliver revenues up 47%, selling a lot of pounds at higher prices. They're a reliable ally supplier.
So we've seen these heavy hitters, but a key question, surely, is how quickly can these companies and others actually ramp up production to meet this demand?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
It seems like it.
The government support is there, yes.
Yeah.
But the sheer cost, the specialized workforce needed for enrichment for advanced mining, it's massive.
Takes time and talent.
Exactly, not just money. And those supply chains are still, frankly, pretty fragile. This is where we look at companies with maybe unique assets or that fast-track potential.
Which brings us neatly to another 8 out of 10, Peninsula Energy, an Australian company. How are they so connected?
Yeah, Peninsula is unique. They're the only ASX-listed company with direct exposure to these U.S. government initiatives.
How so?
They got a substantial $57 million U.S. government uranium purchase contract for the Strategic Reserve.
$57 million?
Yeah. And their Lance project in Wyoming, that's an ISR operation, in situ recovery, less disruptive mining.
Great, extracting it underground.
Exactly. And it has direct government support, so they're a key domestic producer, despite the ASX listing.
Okay. And then Anfield Energy, also an 8. They have an interesting backstory with government support.
They really do. Their Velvet Wood mine. It was the very first uranium project fast-tracked by the Trump administration.
The first one.
Yep. The Interior Department did the environmental review in a record 14 days.
14 days. That's incredibly fast.
Tells you something about the government support, right? Plus, Anfield operates the Shooter and Canyon Mill, one of only 3 licensed mills in the U.S. Crucial processing capacity.
Another key piece of the puzzle. We also need to talk about Westinghouse Electric Company. Private, but scores an 8. They're a huge name, but what's the specific government connection here?
Well, Westinghouse was selected for a conditional HAU allocation from the DOE, so they're in the advanced fuel game.
Okay.
But maybe more importantly, they've announced these huge plans, 10 large new U.S. reactors by 2030.
Reactors.
Big ones. And they're leading development of things like the Avinci microreactor. So they're not just supplying fuel, they're building the future demand for it, aligning directly with national goals.
Got it. Building the infrastructure. Okay, let's move into the next tier. Still strong potential, often with big domestic operations or innovative tech.
Yeah.
Next-gen energy, score of 7.
Right. Next gen, again, Canadian, but very important for the U.S. They've secured contracts for over 10 million pounds with major U.S. utilities.
10 million pounds.
Yeah. And the Rook-I project. It's considered the world's largest uranium development project. Huge potential resource. Plus, they've committed to only supplying allied nations aiming for net zero. That makes them a reliable strategic source for U.S. energy security.
Another strong ISR player is uranium energy, also a 7 out of 10.
Yep. Uranium Energy operates North America's newest uranium mine, Burke Hollow. They're very advanced with that in-situ recovery tech.
Efficient extraction.
Right. And critically, they have a really strong balance sheet. $271 million cash, no debt.
That gives them flexibility.
Huge flexibility to ramp up when needed. De-risks things significantly.
Makes sense. How about Encore Energy, score of 6? Some interesting partnerships there.
Indeed. Encore got a $7 million government contract for the Strategic Reserve, and they've applied to join the DOE HLEU consortium.
Showing ambition in advanced fuels.
Exactly. And that $70 million partnership they have with Boss Energy, that's accelerating their U.S. development funding, shows collaboration boosting domestic production.
Good to see. Let's also touch on Energy, score of 6.
Energy has their Lost Creek facility, ISR operations in Wyoming, which is very uranium-friendly state policy-wise.
Location matters.
It does. And they're producing now, sold 165,000 pounds recently at over $63 a pound, showing they're active.
And Western Uranium and Vanadium, score of 5.
Western has an ore purchase agreement with Energy Fuels for their White Mesa mill.
Feeding into that key infrastructure.
Exactly. They've got stockpiled uranium ready at their Sunday mine complex. And the vanadium part is interesting, too. Dual production aligns with other critical mineral security goals.
Okay, now shifting slightly. You mentioned it's not just mining, but processing and enrichment are vital. There's some key private players here.
Absolutely vital. We can't have a domestic fuel cycle without enrichment. Louisiana Energy Services, which is Urenco USA, scores a 7.
Why so high for a private company?
Because they operate the only commercial enrichment plant currently running in the U.S.
The only one.
The only commercial one. They've got multiple DOE contracts for both HAU and LEU. They have supply agreements with Westinghouse for HALEU. They are simply irreplaceable right now.
An absolutely critical asset.
No question.
And then there's the cutting-edge stuff like laser enrichment, global laser enrichment, and laser isotope separation technologies, both private, score of 6.
Right. These guys are focused purely on the future of enrichment. Global Laser Enrichment is actively developing advanced laser isotope separation.
Okay.
Laser isotope separation technologies, similar deal cutting-edge capabilities. They have potential for long, 10-year DOE partnerships.
So if this tech works out.
If it scales, it could genuinely revolutionize enrichment, make it potentially more efficient, cheaper, all done domestically, big long-term potential.
Okay, and we also looked at General Matter, private, score of 7.
Yes, General Matter.
Yeah.
They were also selected for those big HLU enrichment contracts, the $2.7 billion pool.
Okay.
They're making a huge investment, over $1 billion, at a former DOE enrichment plant in Paducah, Kentucky.
Revitalizing old infrastructure.
Exactly. And interestingly, they're backed by Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, so significant venture capital support behind them.
That's notable. Finally, let's briefly touch on companies with more international or indirect connections. Scores 3 to 5.
Right. Still part of the picture, but maybe less direct U.S. government interface.
Like Boss Energy, score of 5.
Boss is Australian, but they hold a 30% stake in Encore Energy's Alta Mesa U.S. project. So they benefit from U.S. development via that partnership and allied nation producers supporting U.S. goals.
Okay. Consolidated Uranium, score of 4.
They own the Coles Hill project in Virginia. It's actually the largest undeveloped U.S. uranium deposit.
Undeveloped. Why?
Well, Virginia has had moratoriums on uranium mining, so they're sort of waiting, hoping for potential policy changes there, a longer-term play.
Got it. Denison Mines, score of 4.
Another Canadian allied producer. Their Wheeler River project is a huge high-grade development, potential future supplier to the U.S., also strong in ISR technology development.
And lastly, uranium royalty, score of 3.
Yeah, uranium royalty is different. They don't mind. They hold royalty interests in various projects, including some in the U.S.
So they benefit indirectly.
Exactly. They get exposure if the underlying projects, which might have government support, succeed. It's a diversified, less direct way to play the theme.
Okay, quite a landscape.
It really is. And as we've sort of explored today, this uranium sector, it's not just about digging rocks out of the ground anymore.
No, it seems deeply tied into national security, energy independence.
Even the future of AI, as we discussed. So for you, the listener, understanding this landscape, who has those direct government ties like centrists or energy fuels.
That could offer immediate exposure.
Right. While others, maybe in that mid-tier with new tech, present really exciting potential as these government programs keep expanding, and the U.S. really pushes for that full domestic nuclear fuel cycle.
It feels clear that the rare bipartisan support and just the growing realization of how critical nuclear is, it's fundamentally reshaping things.
It is. A real strategic pivot seems underway, securing that domestic fuel supply for the long haul.
So here's a final thought maybe for you to chew on. As this demand for clean, reliable energy just keeps surging, and global supply chains, well, they remain pretty volatile. How might the role of these domestic uranium companies truly reshape the geopolitical energy map over the next decade? What does a genuinely energy-independent America, at least in nuclear fuel, mean for global power dynamics?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We do read them.
Yep.
And if you appreciate what we do, a coffee would certainly brighten our research sessions.
Always welcome.
Thanks again for tuning in.